Completing the square is a method used in solving quadratic equations. The idea behind completing the square is to adjust the left side of the quadratic equation of the form x squared plus bx plus c in order to make it a perfect square trinomial. To obtain a perfect square trinomial, first identify the coefficient of the first agreed term. The first agreed term is, in this case, the x, and the coefficient is just the number in front of it. Second step is to multiply the coefficient by 1/2 and then square the result. Add the result to both sides of the equation. In the example, x squared plus 6x equals 5, our coefficient of the first agreed term is 6. We're going to multiply 6 by 1/2 and then square. So 6 times 1/2 is 3. 3 squared is 9. So we would then add 9 to both sides. The reason we add 9 to both sides is to maintain the balance, as we're not allowed to change the problem, but we can rewrite it or manipulate it to look differently. And the purpose of this is the left-hand side of the equation is now a perfect square trinomial. So solving a quadratic equation by completing the square is to rewrite the x squared plus bx plus c equals 0 as x squared plus bx equals negative c. So we're just moving that constant over to the other side. Then complete the square with the expression x squared plus bx by making it a perfect square trinomial. Maintain your balance. By whatever you add to the left, be sure to add to the right. Factor the perfect square trinomial on the left side. And then solve using the square root property. Always check your solutions. From the top, solve x squared minus 6x minus 7 equals 0. Our first step is to add that 7 to both sides so that we only have the x squared and the x terms on the left. Next, we're going to complete the square. So negative 6 divided by 2 squared is negative 3 squared, or 9. So we add the 9 to both sides. The purpose is the left-hand side is now a perfect square trinomial and can be factored to x minus 3 squared. And on the right, just add 7 plus 9 to get the 16. So we have used the completing the square method, and from here, we're going to use the square root property because we have a perfect square on the left-hand side. So taking the square root of both sides, keeping in mind the square root property tells us that we must use the plus minus. Now add the 3 to both sides. Simplify your square root. Never stop here, you can always simplify. So 3 plus 4 is 7, and 3 minus 4 is negative 1. Never done until you've checked your solutions. Checking the solutions by plugging 7 back into the original equation, and then plugging in negative 1 into the original equation. And we can now conclude that the solutions to x squared minus 6x minus 7 equals 0 are 7 and negative 1. Let's try again. Solve 2x squared plus 5x minus 3 equals 0. First, we have to add that 3 to both sides, not quite ready yet because we need the x squared coefficient to be a 1. So we need to divide both sides by 2. Now that we have a leading coefficient of 1, we can go on with the completing the square method. So taking 5/2 multiplied by 1/2 and then squaring gives us 25/16 to add to both sides. Now the left-hand side is a perfect square trinomial, so we factor it. Next, we can use the square root property to take the square root of both sides, simplify by taking the square root of 49/16, and finally subtract the 5/4 on both sides. Clean it up and simplify your answers. So we get x equals -12/4, which simplifies to -3, or x equals 2/4, which simplifies to 1/2. As always, check your solutions, plug both back into the original problem. Make sure the left side equals the right.